Hi, welcome. My name is Dale McCluskey. In this video, I'd like to talk about the importance of clarity when it comes to creating relational change, in regards to how you think. And I always look at the example. I love the show Gordon Ramsay, Kitchen Nightmares, especially the original UK version. And there was a scene where Ramsay was emphasizing presentation. And he was basically, the plate had a food dish on it, and the guy who prepared the dish had put a little bit of sauce, had kind of gone out onto the side enough that it kind of ruined the presentation. I still remember Ramsay taking a napkin or some sort of a towel and wiping it and really emphasizing clean look. Well, it's no different in terms of presentation when it comes to creating relational change, which represents clarity and clarity in regards to leadership, with becoming the real deal. And so these lines that you create, these boundary lines you create as you're scripting, as you're creating a follower script through various interactions, such as the walk, is very important that you create these clean lines, and you create the staging area that way as well. So when you're using a leash to direct and move your dog into these boundary areas where you're setting up moments, every movement matters. How you think matters. How you control how you think matters, because the dog is really able to get a picture of how the ebb and flow of your psychology. So, it's very important to self-discipline your mind. So even when you're walking, it's very important to keep a little bit of a gap, about an inch space between you and your dog. Because if the dog leans on you, and this is very common. I mean, dogs are seeing you more in a possessive way. They have a tendency to lean on you or want to lay on you. And so when you're starting to create relational change, you have to create clarity. You have to start to become, I wouldn't call it somewhat indifferent, but you have to maintain a leadership framework. So if there's touch is personal. So even how you're touching your dog, even when you're creating moments by pushing and making physical touch and contact, it's very important not to rub. By rub is nurture. And what it'll do within the framework of already being at a deficit, by being seen as weak to the dog and property, it excites the dog's mind. It starts to, and you'll see it. As soon as the touch goes a certain way in the dog, they'll start getting excitable. So it's very important that it's very clean how you think and how you move in the leash to create these moments. You have to clean everything up, but also imagery, visualization. Okay, so because as you're thinking that way with a clear picture, a clear roadmap, a straight ahead focus, your hand is going to start to move without thinking. I mean, because you won't have to be so much about having to think a movement. How your body moves is just going to respond, because really what happens is, if you have clarity with the imagery that you're creating in your mind, say for setting up the staging area or how to direct your dog, even with the boundary lines, which represent, as soon as your dog's physical body starts to cross that line, because again, mind and body are connected. So as your dog is starting to go ahead of you, surge ahead of you slightly, you start to tap, bring that dog back, put it in the sit position, automatically, without thinking. That's why when I'm handling a dog, when I'm focused, when I'm creating relational change, because every time I have to understand, every time I'm helping somebody, it represents an intervention. That person needs help. They're at a deficit. So how I respond in that context of that is at the intervention level. So how my hand moves and what I'm doing matters. It really does to generate for me to gain traction, present that picture to that dog owner so that they can see it. Because seeing is believing. When I'm handling a dog and you're seeing me working a dog, you're going to see where the relationship is going to go. I mean, it'll clean up very quickly because I'm able to think that way. I've trained my mind to think that way. So every movement I make represents that picture. So again, but when you have clarity of mind, the dog really sees the picture. That's why when you're putting a dog into the down position, the dog actually sees the picture, the intent of where you want him or her to go. So that's why it's the unspoken language. It's the language of nature. Okay. So when you invest everything into that approach, that way of communicating, everything starts to come together. But very, very important, like I said, that you create these clean lines, that everything becomes a automatic type of movement. But what happens is the leash actually becomes a paintbrush, and so how you move that leash is just like painting the strokes of creating the picture, the imagery that you're setting in motion to create the moments or the building blocks to create meaningful change. So anyway, just something to think about is how important how you think, the role of your mind plays, because that's where all the power comes from. It's not about being physically strong that way. It's about the power of thought. It's the power you create with how you think. And so it's all about clarity, clean lines, confidence, using proper energy, kinetics. Those all come together. They all intertwine. They all come together, and that's what generates change. So anyway, just something to consider, think about as you start to gain a little insight into the relational model, is the importance of how you think, and that really, really plays a critical role with building the bridge to create change. So thanks very much.